Thank you, Rick and Carolyn. I'm excited to be here. You guys always take us on a journey to a different place, to another place where we can contemplate loftier thoughts and ideas. And so I really want to thank you for that. We all keep coming back. So there's something very special about these gatherings, these devotional meetings. So anyway, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I'm really excited to introduce the topic of feminine leadership qualities. It's a subject I'm passionate about, and I consider myself to be somewhat of an expert. And ordinarily, it may sound a little arrogant for a guy to say that he's an expert on feminine leadership qualities, but I'm going to fully lean into that today, and hopefully when I tell you my story, it will make sense to you. So there's 4 things I want to do today. One is tell you the story about how I became this quote unquote expert. I also want to highlight what are some of these qualities that I'm talking about and their importance to reshifting the balance in the world. And then I want to talk about why we should elevate these qualities and how we can promote their development in both men and women. And at the end of the talk, I want to generate some questions, leave you with some questions that will create some further discussion and dialogue and help us all understand how we can champion these qualities in the world. So let me begin by sharing a little bit about my personal story, because I believe that every single person is on a journey. And I believe that that journey is about finding meaning and purpose and connection with others. I believe it's about discovery of self and one's talents, and ultimately how to use those talents and that discovery process to help the journey of others, as well as making this world a better place. So I want to share some elements about my journey that hopefully will make sense to you. You guys are looking at a picture of my family, my mother and father, Jane and Edward Howard, and my 5 sisters, Mary, Tina, Carolyn, Tracy, Rhea, my brother Gregory, and myself, Charles. And the reason this picture is important is because my family has shaped me in more ways than I was aware. And it really became evident as I continued on in my career. But what's unique about my family is that my mom and dad, when they married in the 1950s, interracial marriages in the United States were still illegal in more than 16 states. And so they were people of great vision and great belief and great values, and they believed in the oneness of humanity. And they had both independently found the Baha'i faith by the time they met each other, and they saw within the Baha'i community a great deal of support for intercultural and interracial marriages. So they themselves decided to get married in 1950, and the result of their blended family, long before Trevor Noah ever described his family in terms of chocolate, I used to talk about my dark chocolate sister, Mary, my 2 white chocolate sisters, Tina and Carolyn, and then that the 4 of us who came from the blended family, they comprised Tracy, Rhea, Gregory, and myself. We were the milk chocolate. So it's important to register this picture in your mind as I speak of the things that are to come, because what's unique about this picture is that there were 6 women in the family and only 3 men. And so I was raised in an environment where women had tremendous influence, and the feminine influence was very strong in my family. And that contributed to the person that I am today. So let me go back to some of the concepts I want to talk about, because when I went to college, I studied mechanical engineering. I was a guy who had multiple interests. I started, but eventually I had to choose a direction. And so I chose engineering, and I knocked on the doors all the way up until the end, and I made it through. And lo and behold, it was all the doors kept opening. So I figured that's the direction I should go in. But I always was a person who had multiple interests. So anyway, I started working as a mechanical engineer, as a process engineer. Then I went on to be a business area manager, later a production manager, a supply chain manager. Eventually, I became a plant manager. But by the age of 36, I had an epiphany. And that awakening was an awakening that told me that maybe I was not on this earth to produce a product. Throughout that entire journey, where I had all those different roles, I was always very uncomfortable working in the environments that I was in. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I kept telling myself over and over again that if I simply climbed the corporate ladder high enough, eventually I would be comfortable and that everything would be fine. But here I am at age 36, and all of a sudden I'm at a high enough level where I should be comfortable. But I wake up one day after a year of working as a plant manager. I had previously been working for Procter & Gamble, and I left Procter & Gamble producing 12 million cases of product for the West Coast of the United States. It was toilet paper, the best in the world, but somehow or another that did not register for me as the contribution that I wanted to making the world a better place. And so I had left Procter & Gamble, and I went to work for this small biotechnology firm, and I was producing a different product. But then after a year of doing that work, I woke up one day and said, nope, this is not what I was put on this earth to do. And so that was a very scary moment for me, because I had invested a lot in my career. I had 2 small kids. I was getting paid a lot of money, but I was not feeling happy or fulfilled, or that was in fact how I wanted to contribute. So I really had to regroup, and I had to do some soul searching. By then, I had become aware that all the corporate environments that I had been a part of were lacking certain things, the things that made me more comfortable. They were lacking a balance between the masculine and the feminine. I felt many of those environments were also lacking in terms of their appreciation for diversity. Many of those environments paid a lip service to diversity, but when you got in the door, you had to learn how to walk a certain way, how to talk a certain way, how to present data a certain way. Otherwise, you were not seen or perceived as a promotable candidate. And so I also experienced in many corporate environments that professed certain values, but had a hard time living up to values and virtues. And so all of these things were part of my consciousness about what was lacking. And I kind of came to grips with part of what made me feel uncomfortable was that many of those things were lacking in the environments that I was in. So I had already decided that producing a product maybe was not what I was meant to do. And then all of a sudden I got the insight that maybe my product was not a physical product, but maybe my product was people, or helping to develop better people. And so right around that time, my wife and I had decided that we were going to live abroad, and we came to Brazil. That was 21 years ago. And so I decided to start a consulting business with the purpose of bringing to the world all of the things that I felt were missing. And so in the last 21 years, uh, at least 15 of those years, I've worked in consulting, and I've worked with the concepts of connecting people to purpose, connecting people to a concept called ikigai, which ikigai is a word that speaks about your motive force, you understanding what you do really well, what you're passionate about, what the world or organizations around you need, and then how to be compensated for that, how to earn your living doing that. In these 15 years, I've also worked a lot with the concept of values, virtues, and principles. And we know that values, virtues, and principles are critical to giving people resiliency in life, in the work world, having healthy relationships. We also know that principles are critical to finding the root cause solutions to any social problem, any problem in the work environment. If you can raise it to the level of principle, you can find practical solutions to those problems. I also have worked a great deal educating people about the multi-dimensional nature of human beings, the fact that we have not only the physical dimension, but we have the psychic, the emotional and mental dimension, and we also have the spiritual dimension, and that human beings are much more complete. They give their best when you are taking into account their entire or their whole self. In these 15 years, I've also worked a great deal with the concept of systemic thinking and learning organizations, helping people to understand the connection, interconnectedness of people and systems, and how to work effectively together to develop synergy and greater productivity. But the one concept that has been transformational in everything that I've done is the concept of servant-oriented leadership. And I did not realize how important this concept of servant-oriented leadership was and why I was so passionate about it until I recently went to a conference. Carolyn mentioned a conference that I attended in Lisbon in May. And I realized how important this concept of servant-oriented leadership was, because it embodies qualities that the world truly needs. And it embodies specifically feminine leadership qualities, qualities of service, qualities of cooperation, qualities of empathy and compassion, and connection to the common good or to the overall social good. And so when I went to Lisbon, it was a conference on sustainability, and I met a ton of incredible people from all over the world. The conference sub-theme was called Harnessing Corporate Power to Do Good. And there were a tremendous number of themes discussed. One of them was servant-oriented leadership. Another one was feminine leadership qualities. Others were related to philanthropy and the role of philanthropy in changing the narrative and doing good. But the conference was a conference of practitioners, people like myself all over the world who are trying to contribute to a better positive discourse on many of these issues and trying to affect change in corporations and in the world in general. So it wasn't a conference where all the answers were given. It was more of a conference where people were looking to consult about the solutions and share experiences and learn from each other. And so it was an amazing, amazing experience. Specifically, I connected to my own experience working these feminine leadership qualities over the last 21 years in the work that I had done. So what I'm sharing are 7 feminine leadership qualities. And this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it would be an interesting exercise just to see what the world considers to be feminine leadership qualities. So I did a ChatGPT search. Most of you know what ChatGPT is. It's sort of like this incredible database of information that gets searched, and then it's this artificial intelligence bot that basically tries to process all that information and come up with some learnings. And so ChatGPT says that these are 7 of the most common feminine leadership qualities. So empathy, being able to understand and relate to the feelings of others. Cooperation, working with others to achieve a common goal. Communication, being able to effectively communicate with colleagues and clients. Flexibility, being able to adapt to changing circumstances. Creativity, thinking outside the box to come up with innovative solutions. Compassion, being able to show understanding and kindness to others. And then mentorship, which is nurturing and encouraging the unfoldment of potential in others. This last one is one I relate to 100% because it's part of my life's mission. It's what I do naturally. But I thought it was interesting to have these qualities highlighted because they're recognized, at least in databases all over the world. When you talk about what are some feminine leadership qualities, this is what comes up as a consensus. But why are these qualities important to the world? And stressing again that this is not an exhaustive list. Abdu'l-Baha, the son of the Prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith, talks about many other feminine leadership qualities. But Abdu'l-Baha also talked about the fact that the world in the past has been ruled by force, and man has dominated over woman by reason of his more forceful and aggressive qualities, both of body and mind. But the balance is already shifting. Force is losing its weight, and mental alertness, intuition, and the spiritual qualities of love and service, in which woman is strong, are gaining ascendancy. Hence, the new age will be an age less masculine and more permeated with the feminine ideals, or to speak more exactly, will be an age in which the masculine and feminine elements of civilization will be more evenly balanced. Now, this is a statement from Abdu'l-Baha that was written over 100 years ago. And it is truly significant because we are seeing more and more in the current days that this principle is coming into effect more and more. There is an analogy in the Baha'i faith that says that the world of humanity is like a bird, and that bird is comprised of 2 wings. One is man and one is woman. And that the analogy states that not until both wings are equally developed can the bird of humanity soar to its highest heights. And so we understand that the world is out of balance. All of that discomfort that I felt in the corporate environment, it was a part of that imbalance that I felt because I was nurtured with feminine leadership qualities. I was raised as a man to be comfortable embodying those qualities in my being, because we know that men and women both have a masculine and feminine side. A woman doesn't have just a feminine side, just as a man doesn't just have a masculine side. We are, to be a complete being, we have to have a balance of both. but the world in general forces us to be more one or the other. The body that we're born into often dictates which of those qualities become more prevalent in our being. But anyway, I talked a little bit about the conference that I attended, and at this conference, I talked about some of the incredible people that were there. And one incredible person that I met was a lady named Dr. Roya Akavan. She is a professor of communication and a researcher and a scholar who has done tremendous work helping to create and articulate a framework and a conceptual framework that will help us advance on the issue of feminine leadership qualities. And she actually talked to me in our first meeting about an institute for feminine leadership qualities that she was developing and she was in the process of launching. And from the minute she talked to me about that institute, I told her, I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to contribute to it as a man. And I connected to my own experience. I connected to my own experience working these feminine leadership qualities over the last 21 years in the work that I had done. But specifically, I mentioned her because the next part of my talk between now and the end, I will rely heavily on information that she shared. And I will actually quote verbatim from her site certain things that will generate questions for us about the topic. But let me share with you some of the research that she shared at the conference. She shared some research with all of us about what do advances in leadership research say. And summarizing much of what she shared studies that basically say that effective leadership, modern characterizations of effective leadership have become more consonant with the female gender role. The research showing from Egley and Carley, 2004. But the gist of the feedback was that feminine leadership qualities are in short supply in today's corporations. This came from a study from McKinsey and Company in 2008. And then she also summarized that studies on effective leadership have been showing a clear trajectory away from traditionally male traits toward traditionally female characteristics and emphasize leadership behaviors that women tended to engage in more frequently than men. Now, this is very important because we're seeing more and more that the corporate world that has been dominated by men is very much lacking and not attending to the needs of workers and of human development professionals as a whole. And so let me go specifically now to why we should elevate and how we can promote some of these feminine leadership qualities that I talked about initially. And I'm going to read almost verbatim from Dr. Akavan's site because I found no better articulation of some of these concepts than how she frames it in her site. So I want to make sure that credit goes to her because the last thing I would want to do is plagiarize her work. So in her site, she talks about global challenges can be resolved through leadership behaviors that focus on nurturing and empowering human beings. And she also says that this requires a paradigm shift in leadership toward values and behaviors that are in effect associated with feminine aspects of humanity. That she acknowledges that the world is out of balance, as Abdu'l-Baha says, and that we need to reshift the balance. And in reshifting that balance, one of the key things that we must do first is elevate some of these feminine leadership qualities to the same level that masculine leadership qualities have been elevated in the world. Many times people do not recognize that many qualities that women display or that men display that are different from the traditional ones, many of those feminine leadership qualities are in effect part of the balance that needs to be reshifted. So she says also that this shift must go beyond expanding the number of women in leadership positions to effect a complete transformation in how leadership is defined and enacted by all leaders. So this is critical because we're talking about something that a paradigm shift that has to take place, but this is not just something that applies to women. It's something that applies to men as well, because men have the ability to enact these leadership qualities just like women. And we need to learn how to value and appreciate them both in men and women. So then she also says in her site that embracing an empathetic, emotionally intelligent, and morally courageous approach to leadership is not the domain of just one gender. Both men and women are equally capable of it. But she goes on to say that this requires, however, a reckoning with the systemically ingrained and psychologically internalized values that have glorified power over service and control over empathy throughout millennia. So she acknowledges that this process that humanity has kind of gone through over many, many, many years is going to take some serious time and some serious effort for us to work through. But the thing that to me is really, really exciting in all of this is that quote from Abdu'l-Baha of over 100 years ago about the balance already shifting, us seeing that take place in society and in organizations today based on the research that Dr. Akavan shared. That is a really heartwarming idea. So let me share one more slide with you. I believe this slide has some questions that I put together, and I put together the questions directly from the questions and the comments and the conceptual framework that Dr. Akavan speaks about in her website, because I believe these are the central and critical questions that we need to be asking, and they're questions that my own experience over the last 20 some years have brought me to as well. So let me share this with you as the last slide I'm going to share. Okay. So the first question is, do you believe that global challenges can be resolved through leadership behaviors that focus on nurturing and empowering human beings? This is a key question that we have to all be thinking about, because if we believe it, then we've got to be committed to helping that process of nurturing and empowering people with these new leadership behaviors. Second question is, how do we create this paradigm shift toward values and behaviors that are associated with the feminine aspects of humanity? So this is another key question that we've got to answer. The third one is, why is it important that the paradigm shift go beyond expanding the number of women in leadership positions? And I think one of the key things that we can discuss in the question and answer section is how is the experience of women in corporations these days and over the last 20 or 30 years, and are women allowed to be authentically themselves, or do they have to wind up conforming to that concept of walking a certain way, talking a certain way, presenting data a certain way that I talked about? And then another question is, why must we effect a complete transformation in how leadership is defined and enacted by all leaders? Then a fifth question really gets at the heart of understanding that if these leadership qualities, these feminine leadership qualities, are not just the domain of women, but they can in fact be embodied by men, how is it that we cultivate these qualities in both men and women and make it okay for men to embody these qualities as well as women? And then the final question is a deeper question that we will have to reflect over and over and over again for a significant amount of time, but it's really about how do we reckon with the systemically ingrained and psychologically internalized values that have glorified power over service and control over empathy throughout millennia. So folks, I hope that these questions you will keep in the forefront or in the background of your thinking as we have this dialogue session. And so my job was really to stimulate discussion and to sort of introduce the topic, but I wanted to be crystal clear that although I may consider myself somewhat of an expert on feminine leadership qualities based on how I was raised and how I was nurtured, I do not consider myself a know-it-all. The answers to these questions we're going to find together, and it's going to take time and effort, but I'm committed to this issue as I know each one of you are committed to this issue. So having said that, let's open up the floor for any questions and dialogue.
About that question of how to bring these traits into the workplace and all the environments where this supposed female leadership is needed, I think that it has to do with, of course, increasing the percentage of women that are in these fields. Many fields are still male dominated. You can still achieve like firsts in so many different areas, but I think that the key is to go back to Abdu'l-Baha's list of the qualities in which women excel. And I thought ChatGPT or whatever did a pretty good job, but it was missing a number of those. And I wonder if I can just list some of the ones that Abdu'l-Baha said that women excel in, and that it should be brought into every arena. He highlighted intuition and receptiveness. He said that women are strong in that area, and we have to obviously study what that is, intuition and receptiveness, because it's not a quality that is very much valued. And sometimes if you say that you're using that, you might get even made fun of. So, and these qualities are very important in the sciences to help you develop hypotheses to test. You must have a feeling of what is important based on data or anecdotal data. Anyhow, I'm not going to get into it very much, but that's one of the qualities. Another one that he emphasized was practicality, that women are very good in terms of practicality and in finding out that which is most needful to society. He also emphasized that women have a love of peace. And this is very interesting if you go back and see the list of women who have received Nobel Prizes in the sciences and every field. Many of them were also into promoting the peace movement in the world. A fourth quality that he emphasized, he said, greater moral courage. Women have greater moral courage. And that this, he said, makes them, it enables her to govern in moments of danger and crisis. So if we're talking about solving the problems of climate change or whatever it is, the world is in crisis on every front. May I just suggest that, you know, hiring women or electing women or putting women in positions of deciding things, you know, how to equitably distribute resources or whatever, that might be a good thing. And another quality he emphasized was that their responsiveness towards the needy and the suffering.
Ria, thank you so much for your contribution. And I didn't want to give the impression that the list I shared was exhaustive. Abdu'l-Baha does talk about the moral courage. He talks about the intuition. He talks about a lot of other things. What I shared was a list of what is already recognized out there in at least the databases of information that get searched. So, but anyway, thank you for your comment. Anybody, Alonzo, please speak up.
Yeah, Charles, I'm surprised this is your topic this morning. I was working on a poem that almost has the same topic. I'd like to share it with the group if I can.
Absolutely.
It's called Soul Sisters. You are the sisters of my soul. So many kindred paths we've taken. Your dreams have been deferred. Countless hopes have been forsaken. You have always owned half the sky. Your calm to life, your claim to life won't be denied. Morality and dignity is your creed, giving birth to a world forever in need. Why are your voices not being heard, silencing thoughts and banning words? No matter how hard you try to arise, the light that's carried is extinguished inside. Chaos and wars will continue to grow until we learn what you already know. Everyone's needed for all to survive. A bird with one wing will just never fly. We must boldly change the minds of man who alter lives because they can. Soul sisters, do your thing. Find your voice so you can sing. Heal this world. Reverse its course. Forever spread your wings.
Beautiful, Alonzo. Beautiful, beautiful. Tina, speak up, please.
The part I can contribute from my experience of 50 years as a physician, 40 of them a homeopathic physician, has to do, I identified most with the sixth question that you offered us for reflection. As people get sicker and sicker in general, we can understand that the pursuit of health, real health, is takes us back to a balance where the person who let's say inhabits this body would be the feminine, and the body is our expression here. And as we find our balance as a person, so that we can have health physically and mentally, then we'll automatically be pulling more feminine traits and characteristics into the paradigm that we find ourselves. I mean, I could go on till tomorrow or next week, but that won't be productive. But I mean, looking for real, honest nutrition and what is health, and what are diseases if not our body trying to beg for help so that it can get its balance back. That has to do with the feminine also.
Thank you, Tina. Anna, and then Julia after Anna.
First of all, thank you so very much. That's incredible, your life and whatever you're doing, Charles. I'm so impressed with your life, and what a beautiful family you have. I don't really have many questions, but my concern is we're paying so much attention to the terminology, femininity, being feminine versus masculine. But I think that it's all based, in my own opinion, the culture that we live in and the people we associate with. Because I know that a lot of women are also they develop the masculinity side, what you call masculinity, because that's what's expected. So it's whatever we nurture is what really works out. So I think that we're paying too much attention to labels, and religions has played a big part to it, to continue to be the masculinity thing, the macho attitude, like the woman is inferior to man, the fact that we're talking about having societies that is a patriarchal society, and the woman is always below the man. So I think we have to be able to change that. We, both men or women, we all benefit from developing those qualities, the virtues, because it not only helps the women, but it helps the men as well. So we all need a balance in all of those virtues, and being able to raise our children in that kind of culture. Not so much I'm a man or a woman, we all benefit from becoming more virtuous. So I'm so impressed with your education level. I cannot be as fluent as you are, and as well you speak, but I feel like one of the problems that our societies, we pay too much attention to labels, and like I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm this or that. We should talk about what we believe in. What are the virtues that we believe in? What are the things? Like I believe in Jesus Christ's teachings. I believe in Muhammad's teachings. I believe in Baha'u'llah's teachings. Instead of saying I'm a Baha'i, or am I Christian, or what do I believe in? And it's almost like the labels are creating all the divisions in my mind. And so that's what I wanted to say. But I'm so appreciative of everyone here and that comes to these meetings. And I've been finding hope in developing communities, communities where we care about each other, and whatever we do is based on what we believe in, to become more forgiving, more accepting, more do not judge, all those things. So thank you so much for everybody's work here. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. And really the objective is to get beyond the labels. The objective is to focus on the qualities that will shift the balance in the world. And you are so right. that the degree to which we can focus on the qualities that are missing, the more progress we can make. There's a lot more on this that we could talk about. I'm gonna try to give room for everybody who wants to speak. Julia and then Liba.
Okay, just several comments, and I could go on forever. Charles, because your area of expertise is similar to what mine was. I did my ed specialist degree in educational policy and administration and leadership. So many of the things that you're discussing are what I was in. It was at the University of Minnesota is where I did my work. My sister went to Madison, by the way, so it's kind of cute. But one of the things that I have found, and it scares me, and I heard snippets of it from Anna, and I've heard it from several of you now, the speakers. What I have seen and experienced is a real strong backslide in accepting those feminine characteristics that you are describing in society as being a good thing. In fact, on the far right in this country and the far Christian right in this country, there is a whole movement called BAP, Bronze Age Perverts, in which advocates embrace the male-dominated thinking that you were describing in one of your slides as being the preferred, the only method of societies succeeding. Bolsonaro, Orban, obviously several of the Trump, several other leaders exemplify those qualities, Putin, and that there is, how shall I say it, it may not be violent, overly violent yet in overt ways in most places, but there are people that strongly disagree with the whole notion of bringing up those critical feminine qualities. And I'm finding, I just turned 65 this year, that I'm so dismayed and saddened because things that I took for granted as a young woman that I knew were rights and privileges and qualities that were celebrated aren't celebrated in the same way. I don't know if that makes any sense. I had the luxury of having parents that expected their 3 daughters to be as educated and successful as they were. There was no excuses. You do it. And also embracing the qualities. And I heard the comment about intuition and whatever. Of course you use it. I mean, it's part of you. And you don't have to explain why it. And I'm, my master's is in mathematics, so obviously I'm data driven too. But the best proofwriting by the best mathematicians are not linear. They're intuitive. The mathematicians think outside the box. All of those skills are critical. And I'm very scared because there's small pockets of us, but we haven't, as a larger group, stood up to say, knock it off. Enough is enough. Both male and female qualities are what is necessary for good societies to be successful. So anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you, Julia. That was very insightful. And really one of the challenges that I find, and I'll get to Liba and then Mojde in just one second. One of the things that I find is a challenge, and the reason I focused on that list of 7 qualities is that when I'm talking to C-suite executives about doing training or cultural transformation in their companies, I need to be able to tie what I'm talking about to time, energy, and money. Otherwise, they're more altruistic nature. If I can't if I can't connect it to those three things, how does it affect the time, the energy, and the resources of the organization? If I can't connect the importance of those qualities to those things, then it becomes difficult to get them to actually want to learn why it's important to work on the balance issue, the equilibrium, etc. But the reality is that, you know, men and women have these abilities to, like, a man is not just comprised of male qualities, and a woman is not just comprised of female qualities. The male has the potential to manifest female attributes, and the female has the potential to manifest male attributes. And I've been married to a woman, wonderful woman, for 35 years, and I've seen all her positive female qualities, and I've seen her manifest masculine qualities when she needs to as well. So it's like we both have the capacity to manifest both, and to be a more balanced human being, we need to be able to manifest both in the world. And that's part of the understanding that we've got to work with people to understand that that's the direction that we need to go in. But anyway, Liba, you wanted to say something.
Thank you for the discussion. I think it's sad that we still have to talk about these things, but it's very much needed, as the previous lady was talking about the environment that we're living in now. The first question is, do companies still seek your advice, and how eager or how content are they to adhere to your advice? Because I remember I was an engineer, okay, electrical engineer, in school, you know, had issues. There weren't that many of us. Now I know it's changed a lot. And then at work too, I had to work twice as hard, or I thought I had to be heard, to be listened in meetings and whatever. And I worked for a company that they invited people to talk. They invited all kinds of, you know, advisors and stuff, but that was it. It was more lip service, and they got them in, and then I didn't see much implemented. And so I want to know, do they seek you out, and how often? Is it more now, or is it less? And then do they listen to what you have to tell them?
Liba, I appreciate your experience and what you have obviously lived through. And the way I can answer you is I am leaning in more and more as I get older in the direction of talking about these feminine leadership qualities as an expert, as a man, because people listen to men more than they listen to women. And C-suite executives and HR managers, they need to hear more men talking about the importance of these qualities. And so I know that, you know, it really depends on the company. There are a few companies out there that I've worked with that are very progressive in their thinking. And then most of the other companies get really, really scared when you start talking about feminine leadership qualities. But it's not going to stop me from working in a direction that I know I need to make an effort to advance, because of those reasons that I mentioned. You know, we know that the balance is shifting in the world, and all of us need to be involved, men and women, because it's not an issue just for women. It's an issue for men. You know, men are prisoners in this world the way it is, just as women can be prisoners in this world the way it is. And so it's not just an altruistic motive on my part to champion the qualities in which women are strong. I do this for women. I do it for men. I do it for the balance that the world needs, that Abdu'l-Baha talks about the world needs. And I really feel like it's all our challenge. We're in this together, because some of the concepts are so deeply ingrained over millennia. So when you talk about feminine leadership qualities, it makes a lot of women really uncomfortable. If you highlight that their feminine leadership qualities. It makes a lot of men really uncomfortable. And so, but we need to understand where the discomfort comes from. And we also need to elevate these qualities to a level where people understand that, like Anna said, these are qualities that are good for the world. They're good for businesses. They're good for corporations. They're good for families. They're good for society. And so what are the qualities? And identify them, because the qualities that have dominated society are the masculine qualities. And we know that's got to change. Anyway, let me pass the word to Mojde. Mojde, please.
Charles, thank you so much for this conversation. As always, I love and enjoy listening to you. And it was a great reminder for me, and to see that, like, just because it's a feminine quality doesn't mean that it's like it's in the female, like it's only in female bodies, or if it's in a masculine, male qualities, is it's only in man. And as about 2 years ago, I discovered for myself that I, as a female, just pretty much like I always stepped into my male qualities. Very little of the female qualities and attributes of mine came out. And to me, was like, for me, it lived as it was a weakness for me to show female qualities. And so out of a course that I took, I really got that. I was like, my eyes was open to like, oh my God, I am solely like live life from this aspect of my life, but not much of this aspect. And it's been a daily ritual, like even at work, like I work in a female like it's more female than male as a nurse. Like there's more female nurses than male nurses, but we all like act like a bunch of males at work. So even it is a bunch of females at work, but we're all stepping into our male like attributes. So what I see for myself is like, oh my God, like was a great reminder again for me to like daily, like what I'm like looking into, like creating a ritual. And I'm thinking possibly, like I took a photo of like when you put the rituals up, and then someone else's was reading, I think it was Ria, was like mentioning a couple of other ones, just like making a little notes on it and just put it somewhere that I can see it daily as an exercise for myself. Because I think that starts all of the changes we want to see in the world. It starts from here. And so for me, it's to start, what can I do to step into that, because it's so easy for me to producing male qualities. So this part of me is very weak. So what can I do? So what I see to do is to create that list and put it somewhere that I can see it, so I can read it every day. And then another thing is that in our work daily, for about 5 minutes, everyone comes together and we give out, like, we write 3 good things on the board. And I can personally, like, if I see those qualities, someone, I can say it out loud that I see it, and it can be on board, so for others to see it. So, but thank you so much again for bringing this up. I appreciate it for my perspective, and as a reminder for me, and this is a discussion to open up, and that I can see that I personally can do something for myself to not this be a forgotten thing again, that I can put a daily ritual for myself. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mojde. And it was a really insightful comment. Thank you for reminding us that. Neil, please.
So coming back to this question of, I don't know if you know of the UNIFEM program, United Nations. They have a program called UNIFEM. When they did it in Cameroon, they found it was most successful when the men adopted it. The women felt more liberated. So moving along quite quickly. So the one dimension that I really feel should be explored also is not, well, feminine leadership is good, but also the idea of collective leadership. And I think this raises up a whole like I too am grappling with the problems of governance in the world that the friends have alluded to. So my wife and I just presented a workshop at the Parliament of the World Religions on the importance of interfaith space, and the style of that was quite interesting. Have I lost everybody?
No. We're here,
Okay.
following
So,
right along.
coming back to the so we were traveling to the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette. Now, this space what we're in right now, I don't know who's here in the space, the different places they are, or is this just the POE group, or where are you living, Charles, by the way?
We're in Brazil. Selma and I are calling from Salvador, Brazil, on the northeastern
Wonderful.
coast. But I
Okay.
think Carolyn's got people spread out all through California and some other places.
So coming back to the theme then of female leadership, like I just celebrated my 55th wedding anniversary to a truly
Wow.
beautiful woman.
Wow.
I come from a very macho culture, but she has transformed me. So I think a marriage is a good space. So I don't want to go too far. So at the Parliament of the World Religions, I was traveling in the bus with this American professor, a woman from the State University of Colorado State University, and she studied at Baha'i Faith. And she said, "Oh, it's all good. You're all for equality, men and women, but why are only men on the House of Justice?" Okay, I don't want to raise that at this stage of the proceedings, because even with this talk, I've got insights as to why, and I'm not going to talk about them. So I think that's just it. That's just my contribution.
Thank you, Neil. I'm gonna pass the word to Barb.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes.
Okay. My brain does quirky things sometimes, and I just wanted to share something that I noticed when you posted the list of the 7 qualities, because I'm outside, so I don't have a paper and pencil next to me. Sometimes I take notes and wasn't going to go inside to get anything. But I noticed that on that list, 4 of the qualities started with the letter C, 1 with the letter M, 1 with the letter E, 1 with the letter F. And then I noticed, oh, F-E-M, femme. And then I thought, oh, I can remember them if I think femme, 4C. And then I thought, oh, 4C, femme. 4C as in the numeral 4 and the letter C, but 4C also as in like visualize, F-O-R-E-S-E-E, 4C. And that made me think, well, that's one more thing we can do to bring these things about besides trying to embody the good qualities of both femininity and masculinity, and trying to treat other people, with compassion and all those good things, trying to model these things to the world, but also trying to foresee them, to visualize them and bring them about. And I'm not discounting voting or any of those things, but most of people in the world aren't in positions of leadership to influence a lot of people. And most of us are just able to influence those close to us, not just the people we know, but someone we sit next to in a movie theater, or someone we stand in line to, next to at a grocery store. One thing my mother noticed when she first moved to Eugene, coming from Oakland, is that she said in Oakland, she would walk down the street, but people don't look at each other. People don't say hi. People didn't really talk to each other. But she said when she moved to Eugene, one thing she loved about it was she would walk down the street and everyone would say hello. She would be in a grocery store and the person next to her might strike up a conversation. And I think that's just, it's just another way we can influence the world, I guess. But I just wanted to share that 4C femme thing, because that's the way my quirky brain works. That's all. Next person.
That was a great comment. And also I like the acronym because it captured all 7 that I listed. Selma.
I was thinking, we're told that Um, the city is the place of the body, and the countryside, nature is the place of the spirit. So Eugene is surrounded by forests. It's a beautiful place in nature. And maybe Oakland is more of a concrete jungle. I don't know. But definitely when I'm in England, down in Paynton, it's the same thing. People say hi. And I'm thinking about that with relation to the values. And I kind of got on Charles's case because like colors, and I'm a elementary school teacher, there are no boy colors or girl colors. They're just colors. But we are focused on this idea of feminine and masculine. And I think when we're more focused on accepting them as values and virtues, that maybe that will, I don't know how, but I do sense this thing about that I think Liba talked about, that there's people are keeping this idea at arm's length, or maybe men are, because they don't want to seem weak by adopting values that women are strong in. But I wish there was a way that we could backtrack and just have them as beautiful values and not not feminine or masculine in any way. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Selma. Is there anyone who would still like to make a comment, or do I pass the ball back to Carolyn?
Gosh, this has been a super rich conversation. I really appreciate the topic coming up, and I can relate to Anna and Salma's ideas of, maybe not the emphasis on these being female qualities, it's hard to get away from words, and it's a way that we express ourselves, and it's not always adequate, but there is maybe a way to make an emphasis on the fact that these are sustainable qualities and ideas that need to be brought forth if the world is going to move into a more balanced and successful experiment, I guess. But I did want to say something also about, for example, one of the ideas that came up is about emotional intelligence, for example. And when I was a younger person, I've always been a very emotional person, and I've always been very intuitive and very keyed into the environment. Like if I walk into a room, I can get immediate sense of how everybody is and where they're at. It just hits me. And for a long time, I maybe was overwhelmed and really affected in a way that maybe, because I didn't know how to, well, throughout life we've learned many things, but I think what I've come to, just to summarize, is that this way of being is not a weakness, which I used to think it was initially, because I would pick up on emotions that would overwhelm me and things like that. But now I know that it's actually a very strength that I have. And so I guess this goes back to what Lucia was talking about, as far as us learning about these aspects of ourselves and learning how to value them and how to embrace them and how to nurture them in ourselves. And then that goes to what Tina was saying about health and how a lot of the illnesses that we have are sometimes a suppression of those aspects of ourselves that we have not let express or develop more fully, and how important that is. And that made me think about why so many women have breast cancer, for example, and that's an area of the heart and the nurturing, and how that us women have not nurtured ourselves sufficiently, and how important it is to embrace that. And many women that have actually had spontaneous healings from breast cancer is because they did realize that and they did embrace that, and many times they healed themselves completely without even intervention, surgical or whatever. So I guess, yeah, there's so much there. I mean, such a rich conversation, and thank you very much, Carolyn and Chuck, and all the contributions. I think there's so much more to talk about. So
yeah, definitely. Maybe that is where we can leave things off. There is so much more to talk about, and we need to talk more about it, because those 6 questions that I put up on the screen, I'm going to send it to Carolyn, and hopefully you guys can she can send it out to everybody, and hopefully you guys can keep talking about the subject, because one of the last question was, how do we reckon with the systemically ingrained and psychologically internalized values that have glorified power over service and control over empathy? And so we're not gonna answer all these questions today, but at least we did a start.
Joy, can I say one more thing though? Which I think is important too, is there's so much fear in the world, and one of the ladies spoke on that. She was saying, about how there's this violent aspect, the most negative aspect of the male-dominated patriarchy thing, kind of this whole backlash, and it's really scaring the heck out of us, especially like things like us not having control over our bodies and things like that. But I think it's, I don't even know how to say this in a good way, but I think there's forces, invisible forces, that are intent in helping humanity move through some of these barriers to a new level of beingness, that we have to somehow believe and embrace and have faith and move in that direction and conquer the fear inside ourselves. Because if we don't, we're going to fall subject to all that negative and dark stuff that's coming up. And I think it's super important to realize that we're not alone, even on a galactic level, that there are influences wanting to see us move in a more, evolve to the next level, which will embrace a lot of these qualities that we've been talking about today. So I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought.
Can we go to Marjan real quick, and then Neil, you wrap things up for us?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much. This has been a really, really good talk. And I think, like Tracy was saying, it's been super rich. Like it's really deep, and there's a lot to take away from the talk itself and all the following comments. But one of the things that you had said, Chuck, during your talk was, and I wrote this down, was many women in the world adopt the male-like behaviors simply to survive. And I just really kind of, I could understand that myself. And also we've been witness to it. Like we've seen that a lot. And then it's kind of to be taken seriously. And then also when you did have I took a picture. What are the feminine leadership qualities? Empathy, communication, compassion. And I think one of the things that I really notice in my classes when I'm teaching is the dynamics are just so, there's so much to pay attention to and so much to love about everybody. And I think I have a lot of students who have changed their gender and or several anyway. And you know, that becomes very complicated, especially because I want to treat everyone with respect. And so it does become very complicated. So that gender role, the male, female, there's just so much to it now. And I think it really does come down to those qualities: compassion, empathy, understanding, and just loving one another and accepting one another. And I think that's where it's going to set people apart from each other. Like as far as having compassion for each other, not genders, but you know, just like people in general. So thank you very much. This was great. And the beginning program too, Carolyn. Thank you. That was awesome.
Kathy, you haven't spoken yet, and then Neil, we'll go to you finally.
Okay, I'm just it's kind of just summarizing what everybody else said, but thank you so much, Carolyn, Rick, and Chuck. It was really a wonderful conversation and something wonderful for my senses and my spirit to listen to and to be part of. The idea of systemic power over service, control over empathy. What if we just simply put virtue over power?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Neil, did you have one last comment?
Well, firstly, I don't know if you know, but I think, am I the only man who spoke tonight, apart from you? Yeah, that's right. I think, what do we,
no, Alonzo did. Alonzo shared some poetry before he left.
No, the thing I just want to say is I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed meeting you, Chuck, because you're very gentle. You've got a beautiful manner. But the thing is that the whole thing that was never mentioned is motherhood. Mothers. Only women. I'm really responding to what Salma, because Salma, she's a mother. And in my experience, professional experience, I say I want to employ as managers mothers. I just want to throw that into the mix, just to leave you with that.
Thank you, Neil. Carolyn, you take it away.
Thank you so much, Chuck. It was a fantastic talk. Can't wait to get the edited version so I can send it out to everybody, because a lot of people could not come and wanted to come. So thank you everybody else for coming. It's been a wonderful morning. God knows I needed it. So it's been great to see everybody, and hope to see you again next month. And by then, hopefully my email will be working again. I can send out the invite via email first and follow up with the text, because some people were confused about, there's not a link. How can I get on? You just click on join, go to Zoom, click on join, and put in the, you know, the meeting ID and the password. Works just as well as a link.
Carolyn,
who's talking?
This is Rhea. I just wanted to put something out there, which I don't expect anybody will have an answer for, but maybe Chuck, you can meditate on this. And that's the fact that this coming generation, the generation that's like 15 and under, or, you know, right around there, or even younger, they're starting to really identify in a different manner. Many of them are asking to identify as non-binary people. Actually, they're choosing to reject gender labels. And I wonder how that is connected with the fact that many of these labels that we put on these qualities have been toxic to the development of the full human being, of the balanced human being. And so they're going into this zone of where they just want to reject those labels and just be. So that's just a thought.
Thank you, Rhea.